Matt Rhule and the Nebraska Cornhuskers are moving on from John Butler, defensive coordinator, after only one season at Nebraska. And honestly, cannot really blame them. You could certainly argue that John Butler deserved a little bit more time. That pass defense did look good to begin the season. However, to end the season, you give up 40 points to your arch rival in Iowa, and you allow Penn State to have one of their best offensive games of the season with freshman quarterback Ethan Grunkmeyer, who had his best game of the season up until that point. He had a better game against Rutgers, but Rutgers is one of the worst defenses in all of college football, so I don't really think that's much of an accomplishment. That's like, yeah, you were slightly better than Rutgers in this one. But Grunkmeyer, he was a freshman quarterback, and he came into this game, albeit it's in Happy Valley, it's not at home, but still, in this game, he was 11 of 12, 181 yards, one touchdown, and he was only sacked one time. And Penn State had 5 big play passing plays in this game. Those are plays of 15 or more. They had a 50-yard pass. They had a few 20-plus yard passes, things like that. Like, this was a game where Penn State really was able to work out some of their passing game issues against Nebraska. And for a Nebraska team that many thought this was one of the better, if not the best, passing defenses in the country, and they really looked that way to start the season as well. Of course, they faced their out of conference, Houston Christian, Cincinnati. Who was the other one there? Akron. How could I forget Akron? And you face Michigan. 0 touchdown passes in that time. None of them throw for over 105 yards. Michigan was the leading passing team in that one. That was also, though, when Bryce Young had Biff Poggi and he was kind of opening it up, running a little bit more out there. But then you follow it with Michigan State. Michigan State does get a touchdown pass. You're like, okay, but 2 interceptions in that game. That really gives you some more confidence. And then Maryland gets a little bit of passing, and then Minnesota gets a little bit of passing. Well, Maryland had about 250 passing yards in there, had a touchdown pass. And then to end the season, it's really when it kind of fell apart. UCLA had 2 passing touchdowns, 191 yards. Penn State, like I said, you just had Grunkmeyer, and then obviously Iowa. Mark Gronowski was only 9 of 16, but he also had 166 yards passing and 1 passing touchdown in that game. Really, what a lot of this came down to was Nebraska's inability to stop the run. They were not very good at that against a lot of different teams that they faced. And then also they had a 3-3-5 defense that was just absolutely terrible all season long. 3 down linemen when you don't really have 3 good down linemen, and then you had 3 linebackers when the linebackers were okay, but they weren't anything special in all of this. If nothing else, Matt Rhule needs to go away from somebody who runs a 3-3-5 and get more into a 4-2-5 type of system. Now, Nebraska didn't run 3 down linemen the entire time. They would kind of do some different things, get to 4 down linemen, or at least 3 down linemen with an edge kind of out there a little bit as well. So it's not like they just only had 3 down linemen the entire time, but you definitely need to get into a more versatile defense like the 4-2-5. Everybody's gonna, give this defensive line the most flack for all of this, and I do think that they deserve it. But the best guys in the D line were the young guys this year, and I think that that's probably one of the biggest things about this defensive coordinator firing is that you saw some potential from some of these guys, right? Williams Nwaneri, he had some potential. Cade, I'm gonna mess up some of these names. I apologize. Pete Zach, he had some good stuff. Riley and Van Poppel, Kiana Davis. These were good young defensive linemen that they had out there playing at times. And really, the hard part was you just didn't get anything from your veterans. You had Elijah Judy and Cam Linhart in this one. I mean, Linhart, just in 2 years ago in 2023, he had 3 sacks that season. Now, it's not the highest number in the world, but definitely for a younger guy, that's like, okay, we can work off of this. This is better. And then this next year, or this past year, 2025, this past season, Judy and Linhart only have 2 combined sacks together. Both of them each have 1 individual sack. So the future is bright for this defensive line, especially with them being able to flash under a John Butler system that really wasn't doing them a whole lot of favors. They really weren't able to get all that many tackles for loss. They really weren't able to stop the run all that much. And really in that Minnesota game was when you saw some of these issues really kind of take shape and show that John Butler is not cut out to be a defensive coordinator in college football, at least at the Big Ten level yet. I'm sure he can go someplace else and, sharpen himself up a little bit. But for a guy coming from the NFL, a secondary coach, to end the season, like I said, against UCLA, Penn State, and Iowa, with them passing the ball against you, not like they were passing for 300 plus yards, but still being able to pass the ball against you, a true freshman at Penn State, Ethan Gruckmeyer, Mark Gronowski, a guy that has been ridiculed all season long for his inability to pass the ball. For you to come in as a secondary or a DB coach from the NFL, get the defense, and then your secondary looks pretty good, if not really good at the beginning of the year, and then it just falls off like that at the end of the year. There is no reason that Matt Rhule and these guys should have kept John Butler around. I mean, like I said, maybe you want to give him a little bit more time, but I think Matt Rhule made the right decision here, and this is one of the reasons why I really do feel great about Matt Rhule as a head coach. Did the season end this year the way you want? No, it's 7-5. It's still a failure. You should have got at least 8 wins. So maybe not great, but I still feel good about Matt Rhule as a coach, and I think that he's going to continue to improve, get this program better. Yes, they're going to face a really difficult schedule at some point. We don't really know how that happens until the actual season plays out. But they're going to face a really difficult schedule at some point, and they're probably not going to have a great year that year. But I think Matt Rhule is the type of guy that he does not settle for mediocrity on his coaching staff. We saw what happened with Satterfield. He brought Dana Holgorsen in. We saw what happened now with John Butler. He's going to bring somebody else in. And he's going to bring in a dude for this team. I'm very confident in that. I have 6 candidates that I think I think Matt Rhule could potentially go after, if not hire, one of these 6 guys. Number one, one of the biggest names is Justin Wilcox. He just got fired from Cal, defensive coordinator from 2010 to 2016. He had various stops, and then he was the head coach at Cal from 2016 to 2025. Jim Knowles at Penn State is a big name. I don't know if you would love to go for him just because it's not been a great year, but Jim Knowles, he is a national championship winning defensive coordinator, so he would be able to bring a whole lot of experience with him, and he's proven to be able to do it with not as talented of teams. So, and I'm not trying to say Nebraska's not a talented team, but Nebraska's not Ohio State, Nebraska's not Oregon, right? They don't have that kind of talent just yet. So for Jim Knowles to go there, maybe this is the type of team, former Big 12 team. He did his best work in the Big 12. I don't know. I'm looking for anything here to try and figure something out, because I do think Jim Knowles is probably going to be thought of in some of these defensive coordinator hirings. I don't know if he'll actually get hired, but he's going to be thought of in some of these. Another one, no, I'll just name a few here because they're former head coaches. You got Brent Pry from Virginia Tech, Mark Stoops from Kentucky. He just got fired. They hired Will Stein. Going to make a video on that, so you can feel free to watch that as well. And then Geoff Collins, the former Georgia Tech head coach as well. I mean, these are 3 guys, all former head coaches. You have Dana Holgorsen, who's a former head coach, him coming in, doing a pretty good job here with the offense. I still think the offense can improve in a few ways, but for the most part, he's coming in doing a good job with the offense, and Matt Rhule is trusting him. We'll see how that continues to go. But you bring in another head coach, that is just more head coaching experience on this team. Matt Rhule did a really good job going out and hiring Mike Eckler. So he did a good job of bringing Dana Holgorsen in too. So I'm not going to say I 100% trust Matt Rhule that he's going to absolutely make the best hire possible, but I do feel better about Matt Rhule because he is going away from the guys that did not produce from him, and he's going with guys that he's more confident in. And the final one I'll mention here, because I do think it would be interesting, the Syracuse defensive coordinator Elijah Robinson over there at Syracuse. He's not been bad there at Syracuse. He's actually been kind of a bright spot of that team with Fran, or on that coaching staff with Fran Brown. I would not be surprised at all to see him come over to Nebraska and be the defensive coordinator. Obviously, we'll see what happens more. We'll get some more names and stuff like that as the search continues on. But wanted to bring up those names, wanted to bring up these points about John Butler, and just continue to give my confidence in Matt Rhule. Do I think Matt Rhule is going to turn Nebraska into a playoff team next year? No, not necessarily. Do I think that he could make 7, 8, 9 win seasons consistent at Nebraska? Yeah, I think he could. And I think that his, the standard that he holds himself to, the standard he holds his program to, is going to be really good for him. This team is still improving, right? This program, like Matt Rhule said, they're improving. They're not improving at the pace they want to, so that's a failure, but they are improving, and that does need to be looked at. So what are your thoughts on Matt Rhule firing John Butler? Let me know. Do you like any of these head coaching or these defensive coordinator candidates? Would you make a hire on any of these guys? Do you have a hire elsewhere that you're thinking about? Would love to hear your thoughts. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff for us. We appreciate it. Have a good one.